Book of Heaven Volume 2, Call of the Creature to the Order, the Place and the Purpose for which he was created by God, by the servant of God Luisa Piccarreta. Page 39-45. June 5, 1899, Her Miserable State. The Health of the Confessor. My state of annihilation still continues. It was such that I did not dare to say a word to my beloved Jesus. But this morning, having compassion for my miserable state, Jesus himself wanted to cheer me, and here is how. As he made himself seen, and I felt all annihilated and ashamed before him, Jesus drew near me, but so close, that it seemed that he was in me and I in him. And he told me, "My beloved daughter, what is it that makes you so afflicted? Tell me everything, for I will content you, and will remedy everything." Since I continue to see myself the way I described the other day, in seeing myself so bad, I did not dare to tell him anything. But Jesus repeated, "Come, come, tell me what you want, do not hesitate." Seeing myself almost forced, bursting into flooding tears, I said to him, "Holy Jesus, how do you want me not to be afflicted? After so many graces, I shouldn't be so bad anymore." Sometimes, also in the good works I try to do, I mix so many defects and imperfections, that I myself feel horror. What must they be before you, who are so perfect and holy? And then, the suffering, so very scarce compared to before, your long delays in coming, everything tells me in clear notes that my sins, my awful ingratitudes, are the cause of it, and that you, indignant with me, deny me even that daily bread which you usually concede to everyone, which is the cross. So, you will end up abandoning me completely. Can there be a greater affliction than this? Jesus, all compassion for me, pressed me to his heart and told me, "Do not fear, this morning we will do things together. In this way I will make up for your things." So, first it seemed that Jesus contained a fount of water and another of blood within his breast, and in those two fountains he plunged my soul, first in the water, and then in the blood. Who can say how purified and embellished my soul became? Then, we began to pray together, reciting 3 Glory Bees, and he told me that he was doing this to make up for my prayers and adorations to the majesty of God. Oh, how beautiful and touching it was to pray together with Jesus. After this, Jesus told me, "Don't let yourself be afflicted by the lack of suffering. Do you want to anticipate the hour established by me? My operating is not hurried, but everything has its time. We will fulfill everything, but at the appropriate time." Then, afterwards, because of a fully providential circumstance, unexpectedly, since the viaticum had come out of the church for other sick people, I too received communion. Who can say, after all that had passed between Jesus and me, the kisses and the caresses that Jesus gave me? It is impossible to say everything. After communion, I seemed to see the sacred host, and in the host I could see, now the mouth of Jesus, now his eyes, now one hand, and then he showed all of himself. He transported me outside of myself, and I found myself, now in the vault of the heavens, now on earth in the midst of people, but always together with Jesus. Every once in a while he would repeat, "Oh, how beautiful you are, my beloved. If you knew how much I love you. And you, how much do you love me?" On hearing these words being spoken to me, I experienced such confusion that I felt I was dying, but in spite of this, I had the courage to say to him, "Jesus, my beautiful one, yes, I love you very much. And you, if you really love me, tell me also, do you forgive me for all the evil I have done? But, concede also suffering to me." And Jesus, "Yes, I forgive you, and I want to content you by pouring in abundance my bitternesses into you." And so Jesus poured his bitternesses. It seemed to me that he had a fount of bitternesses in his heart, received through the offenses of men, and most of it he poured into me. Then Jesus told me, "Tell me, what else do you want?" And I, "Holy Jesus, I commend to you my confessor, make him a saint, and grant him also health for his body. But then, is it completely your will for this father to come?" And Jesus, "Yes." And I, "If it were your will, you would let him be well." And he, "Be quiet, do not want to investigate my judgments too much." At that very moment he showed me the improvement in the health of the body, and the sanctity of the soul of the confessor, and he added, "You want to rush things, but I do everything at the right time." Then, I commended to him the people that belong to me, and I prayed for sinners, saying to Jesus, "Oh, how I wish that my body would split into tiny little pieces, provided that sinners would convert." So I kissed the forehead, the eyes, the face, the mouth of Jesus, doing various adorations and reparations for the offenses that sinners gave him. Oh, how content Jesus was, and I too. Then, having Jesus promised to me that he would not leave me any more, I returned to myself, and so it ended. June 8, 1899, Luisa wants everyone to convert. My adorable Jesus still continues to make himself seen all benignity and sweetness. This morning, while I was together with him, he repeated again, "Tell me, what do you want?" Immediately I said, "Jesus, my dear, what I would really want is that the whole world would convert." What a request out of proportion, but still, my loving Jesus told me, "I would content you if all had the goodwill to be saved." And yet, to show you that I would gladly grant everything you have said, let us go together into the midst of the world, and all of those whom we will find with a goodwill to be saved, as evil as they may be, I will give to you. So we went out in the midst of people, to see who had the goodwill to be saved, but to our highest displeasure, we found a number so very scarce, that it is sorrowful just to think about it. In this number, so very scarce, there was my confessor, the majority of priests and part of the faithful, but not everyone from Corrado. Then he showed me the various offenses he was receiving. I prayed him to let me share in his sufferings, and Jesus poured his bitternesses from his mouth into mine. After this, he told me, "My daughter, I feel my mouth too embittered. Oh, please. I beg you to sweeten it." I said to him, "I would gladly give you anything, but I have nothing. You yourself, tell me, what can I give you?" And he told me, "Let me suckle milk from your breasts, for in this way you will be able to sweeten me." And at the very moment he was saying this, he lay down in my arms and began to suckle. While he was doing this, a fear came to me that it might not be baby Jesus, but the devil. Therefore I placed my hand on his forehead and I signed him with the cross, per signum crucis. Jesus looked at me all festive, and while still suckling, he smiled, and with his lively eyes he seemed to tell me, "I am not a demon, I am not a demon." After he seemed to be satiated, he got up on my lap, and kissed me all over. Now, since I too felt my mouth bitter from the bitternesses he had poured into me, I felt like I wanted to suckle from the breasts of Jesus, but I did not dare to. But Jesus invited me to do it, and so I plucked up courage and I began to suckle. Oh, what sweetness of paradise came from that holy breast! But who can express it? Then I found myself inside myself, all inundated with sweetnesses and contentments. Now I will explain that, when it happens that Jesus suckles from my breasts, my body does not participate in this at all, rather, it happens when I am outside of myself. It seems that this thing occurs only between the soul and Jesus, and when he wants to do this, he is always a child. It is so true that it is only the soul and not the body, that, when this happens, I am always either in the vault of the heavens, or wandering through other points of the earth. Sometimes, then, I have said that as I returned to myself, I felt a pain at that place from which baby Jesus had suckled, because in suckling, sometimes he would do it a little strongly, so much so, that it seemed that through that suckling he wanted to pull out my heart from within my breast. Therefore I felt a sensible pain, and as I returned to myself, the soul would communicate it to the body. But then, this happens also in other things, as for example when the Lord transports me outside of myself and lets me share in his crucifixion. Jesus himself lays me on the cross, and pierces my hands and feet through with the nails. I feel such pain that I feel I am dying. Then, when I find myself inside myself, I feel it well in my body, so much so, as to be unable to move my fingers or my arm, and so forth with the other sufferings that the Lord shares with me. To say everything, I would be too long. I also remember that when Jesus would suckle from my breasts, he would place his mouth there, but it is from my heart that I would feel him draw whatever he suckled, so much so, that while he would do this, at times I have felt my heart being torn from my breast, and sometimes, feeling a most vivid pain, I said to him, "My pretty little one, indeed you are too impertinent. Do it more mildly, for it hurts very much." And he would laugh to himself. In the same way, when it is I that suckle from Jesus, it is from his heart that I draw that milk, or blood, so much so that, for me, suckling from the breast of Jesus is the same as drinking from his side. I will add also another thing, since the Lord every now and then is pleased with pouring the most sweet milk from his mouth, or with letting me drink his most precious blood from his side, then, when he wants to suckle from me, he suckles nothing else but what he himself has given me, because I have nothing with which to sweeten him, but much with which to embitter him. This is so true that, sometimes, in the very act in which he would suckle from me, I would suckle from Jesus, and I would realize clearly that what he was drawing from me was nothing other than what he himself was giving me. It seems I have explained myself enough, as much as I could. June 9, 1899, the very grave sin of abortion. Union of sufferings and of prayers. I spent this morning very anguished because of the many offenses which I saw him receive from men, especially because of certain horrendous dishonesties. How much the loss of souls grieved Jesus. More so, since it was a newborn baby that they were going to kill, without administering holy baptism to him. It seems to me that this sin weighs so much on the scale of divine justice, that it is the one that most cries out for revenge before God. Yet, these sorrowful scenes are renewed so very often. My most sweet Jesus was so afflicted as to arouse pity. Seeing him in such a state, I did not dare to tell him anything, and Jesus just told me, "My daughter, unite your sufferings to mine, your prayers to mine, so that they may be more acceptable before the majesty of God, and may appear not as your things, but as my own works." Then he continued to make himself seen other times, but always in silence. May the Lord be always blessed.